Hello everyone, welcome back to Sowkya Vision. Today we are going to discuss neuromuscular junction, the NMJ. Yes, what is NMJ? What is neuromuscular junction? A junction between a motor nerve and a skeletal muscle fiber is known as neuromuscular junction. Yes, neuro means what? A neuron. Muscular means a muscle fiber. So the junction that is present between neuron and muscle fiber is known as neuromuscular junction. In this video, we are going to cover the structure of NMG. The events that occur at the junction of the neuromuscular junction, and something applied related to neuromuscular junction. Yes. Now let's start with the structure of the neuromuscular junction. Yes, the neuromuscular junction containing two main parts. What are they? The neuron end and the muscle fiber. This is the muscle fiber end. So it is known as motor end plate. The muscle side is known as motor end plate, whereas the neuron is again divided into neuron terminals, right? They are known as terminal buttons, whereas the muscle is known as motor end plate. See, nerve ending is further again divided into axon terminals or terminal buttons. So, it makes close interaction with the muscle fiber, all are also known as motor end plate. When the neuron, this is the neuron, right? The neuron is divided into neuron terminals or terminal buttons. These neuron terminals get interacted with the motor end plate of the muscle fiber. Yes, nerve endings rich in synaptic vesicles and mitochondria. See, this is a nerve end, right? So the nerve end is containing mitochondria. These are the mitochondria and these are the vesicles. Yes, the lower end of the axon or the neuron containing more mitochondria and more synaptic vesicles. What is stored in the synaptic vesicles? The neurotransmitters. Yes, the neurotransmitters are stored in the synaptic vesicles, whereas mitochondria is required for the ATP. Yes, whereas mitochondria is required for the ATP. Now, motor end plate invaginates into folds to form depression. Yes, this is a motor end plate, right? It is folded into depressions, forming depressions. Why? To interact with the chemicals releasing from synaptic vesicles. Whenever the synaptic vesicles releasing chemicals, these depressions acts as a receptors and receive the information. Yes, now the folds form depressions. These are known as synaptic gutter. Yes, these are known as synaptic gutter or synaptic trough. So the membrane of the neuron is known as presynaptic membrane. Yes, the membrane here it is a presynaptic membrane, whereas the membrane of the muscle fiber or motor end plate is known as postsynaptic membrane. Yes, neuron is known as presynaptic, whereas muscle motor end plate is known as postsynaptic. So the space between these two, presynaptic membrane and the postsynaptic membrane, is known as synaptic cleft. Yes, this space that is present between these two is known as synaptic cleft. So the space present between them is synaptic cleft. So what are the main structures that are present in the neuromuscular junction? A neuron is dividing into terminal buttons containing mitochondria and also neurotransmitter stored synaptic vesicles. These synaptic vesicles are containing neurotransmitters like acetylcholine. Yes, and the motor end plate is again folded into depressions, forming depressions known as synaptic gutter or trough. Synaptic gutter or synaptic trough. The neuron membrane is known as presynaptic membrane, whereas the membrane of the motor end plate is the postsynaptic membrane. So the space between these two is what? Synaptic cleft. Yes, the space between these two is synaptic cleft. Now let's see the sequence of events that occur during neuromuscular transmission. Yes, neuromuscular transmission that occur at the neuromuscular junction. What happens when any impulse reach nerve? See, any impulse like pain or any hotness, any information came to nerve, there will be generation of the action potential. When an impulse reaches nerve, there will be generation of the action potential. Immediately there will be opening of voltage gated calcium channels. Whenever the impulse is reached to nerve, the action potential generated, immediately the calcium channels get opened. Then the calcium from the extracellular fluid enter. Yes, the extras from the extracellular fluid enter into the axon. That leads to opening of the vesicles. As I said, the vesicles containing what? Neurotransmitters. Whenever the calcium is entered, the vesicles get opened and release of neurotransmitters. Yes, whenever the calcium entered, the moment when calcium entered, the vesicles get bursted, release of the neurotransmitters. So neurotransmitters, one of the main example is acetylcholine. So whenever the neurotransmitter is released, that neurotransmitter is attached with these depressions containing receptors. Yes, so forming acetylcholine receptor complex. Neurotransmitter and receptor complex is formed. So whenever that complex is formed, there is the passage of sodium from ECF to end plate potential. Yes, whenever the complex is formed, the sodium is enter from ECF. There will be again potential generation, action potential, that is known as end plate potential at where at the postsynaptic membrane. So there will be generation of action potential. Then there will be excitation and contraction. Yes, there will be excitation, contraction, that leads to contraction of the muscle. Yes, once again, whenever the impulse came, the nerve gets stimulated, then there will be immediate generation of action potential. Whenever the action potential is going to take place, immediately the voltage gated calcium channels get opened. The calcium enter into the neuron, the neuroterminals enter into the neuroterminals from the extracellular fluid, and that calcium makes the vesicles to open and release neurotransmitters like acetylcholine. Yes, this acetylcholine get bind with the receptors of motor end plate. That leads to release of sodium from ECF to the postsynaptic membrane. Here the calcium is entering into the presynaptic, whereas the sodium is entering into the postsynaptic. And now there the generation of action potential begins. That leads to contraction of the muscle. Yes, this is the sequence of events that occur at neuromuscular transmission. Yes, let's see the applied physiology of neuromuscular junction. There is a condition called myasthenia gravis. Yes, myasthenia gravis, it is a disorder, something related to neuromuscular junction. See, it is an autoimmune disorder. It is an autoimmune disorder that affects neuromuscular junction. Yes, that affects neuromuscular junction. What happens? There will be muscle weakness. There will be more muscle weakness in the body. What are the causes that leads to myasthenia gravis? There are autoimmune antibodies. Normally antibodies that are released to the response of antigen, but here the antibodies are released in order to damage their own cells. Yes, here antibodies are produced to kill their own cells. So the auto antibodies, so antibodies are IgG, that against receptor of acetylcholine, that acts against receptor of acetylcholine. We have receptors at the postsynaptic membrane, right? So that auto antibodies works against receptor of acetylcholine, that prevent binding of acetylcholine with receptor. Whenever these auto antibodies are released, the acetylcholine do not bind with the receptors of postsynaptic membrane. That leads to myasthenia gravis. So what are the symptoms? What are the clinical features the patient come with? There will be slow and weak muscular contraction. there will be slow and weak muscular contraction, and then there is no prolonged contraction. Prolonged contraction, a person cannot do prolonged contraction. He cannot contract for the long time. And there will be weakness of throat. Yes, there will be throat weakness, and there will be weakness of muscles of speech. There will be weakness of muscles of speech. Myasthenia gravis is a autoimmune disorder because autoantibodies are produced against the receptor of acetylcholine, which prevents the binding of acetylcholine with the receptors. That leads to slow and weak muscular contraction, and prolonged contraction is not there, absent. Yes, this is the neuromuscular junction. You must study the neuromuscular junction for a short answer, and the events of the neuromuscular junction can also be asked for short answer. In that question, you have to mention myasthenia gravis. Yes, this is a complete discussion of neuromuscular junction. If you have any doubt, please comment in the comment section. Like the video, share the channel, and subscribe to the channel. Namaste.